With the release of Generation 9, there are officially over 1,000 Pokemon and a piece of fucking string cheese that rides on a skateboard, like Tony Hawk. I'm not even fucking kidding. When you look at competitive play, there's really only about 12 Pokemon in use, and they are literally everywhere. They're about every team you're going to see. But with over 1,000 Pokemon in the game, there's got to be something you can use that isn't in the top 12, right? Well, I found 5 underrated Pokemon that I personally believe are some of the best Pokemon that nobody uses for some reason, and they all fall under 2% usage in this game. Yes, 2% usage. Starting off at number 5, I'm telling you all about my boy Tyranitar. Yes, he's my favorite, so he does make the list, but I also think he is viable. When you look at his stats, he is an insane stat spread. The only thing he's missing is speed, but he doesn't really need speed, to be honest. With the ability to switch in on many attacks due to its physical and special bulk, and it has insane special bulk, especially if it's holding the Assault Vest and Sandstorm. While Tyranitar does have issues, there's really only 2 issues. 2 issues are, of course, his typing. Super weak to fighting and super weak to water, which is insane because we all know who's one of the best Pokemon in the game, Urshifu. Urshifu is a huge issue for Tyranitar, but due to Terrestrialization, you can get around this weakness almost entirely. But that's where the second issue comes in. For some reason, Pokemon and Game Freak don't know how to fix their game. I don't understand why Tyranitar gets affected by his own ability. He gets hit by Sandstorm damage even though he set up the sand. Like, Pokemon, what the fuck are you doing here? Number 4 on this list, I have Iron Bundle. Looking at his stats, it's insane. Dude has speed and special attack for days. Yeah, he's kind of weak. He's not going to take too many hits. But he does the job he needs to do. Once you get him in and you're able to control speed the way you want to control speed, maybe even set up for some of your slower Pokemon in the back to outspeed some guys, it's pretty nice. He does have quite a few issues though. He is weak to fighting, which again is another problem for Urshifu's. But he at least resists Urshifu Rapid Strike sometimes. Only problem is usually if you are using an Iron Bundle, someone is going to lead with a Fake Out user and you got to Terra into Ghost. Switching to Terra Ghost is not the best, honestly, considering Fluttermane and Urshifu Single Striker out there. Does make it a little sketch, but I don't understand he's only a 2% usage mon. He deals with every single Ogerpon. Ogerpon cannot do anything against this guy, especially when he has Freeze Dry running. Fastest mon in the game, all they can do is try to protect around you. It's not fun for them, honestly, I don't believe. Coming in at number 3, it's me. I'm just kidding, but I am a little underrated. Come on, we're under 100 subs. Let's get that up, guys. But honestly, coming in at number 3, I have the boy Suicune. Yes, it's another water type, but that's why it's good. It's a bulky water type. Look at his stats. He can take special hits, physical hits. He just sits there, especially if you give it a leftovers, he can sit on the field forever. Honestly, I think he is elite because Incineroar is the best Pokemon in the game. He's able to completely wall out Incin with his insane ability. It's able to ignore Intimidates, and it's able to ignore Fake Outs. It's kind of nice, especially in a game full of Fake Out users. But it's also nice because it can set up Tailwind no issue, unless it's getting taunted. But I do think it's one of the best Tailwind setters out in the game currently. Another huge buff is it still keeps Scald, so it's able to burn some physical attackers. And hopefully you're burning one of the Urshifus. But Water Urshifu is not really giving you an issue. I believe this Pokemon's main issue, same with Iron Bundles, is it's weak to Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is one of the most used Pokemon. It honestly was the second most used in the last regional. It's kind of tough to get around. I'm not going to lie, that is a big issue. And number 2, I have another Pokemon who is insanely weak to Raging Bolt, but actually is also kind of effective against Raging Bolt. I got my Sand Team GOAT, Corviknight. Corviknight with its insane Steel Flying typing is just honestly busted. Look at its stats, it can take hits. It sets up Tailwind, it can U-turn, it can Brave Bird, it can deal with both the Urshifus, no issue, especially if you give it like a Terra of Dragon. And it can also deal with Fluttermane, one of the other most used Pokemon. It deals with a lot of the top meta Pokemon. Its main issue is genuinely just Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt does give it an issue. But if you're playing against a Raging Bolt that does not have Thunderbolt, and is only using Electro Web and Thunderclap, you can honestly play around it. If it hits you with an Electro Web with its insane ability of Mirror Armor, you're able to reflect back the speed drops that it's giving. And it's also nice because with Mirror Armor, if someone's playing an Incineroar, you're able to reflect back that Intimidate, so you're honestly going to live any Flare Blitz coming at you with. Mirror Armor is an insane ability that just bounces back any stat drop they're throwing at you. So if a Fluttermane is also throwing stuff at you, such as Moonblast or Shadow Balls, those drops that normally your Pokemon would get are going back to that Fluttermane, making it an easier Pokemon to deal with, especially for your other Pokemon that might be weak to Fluttermane. Honestly, I think Corviknight's insanely underrated. It's one of the best Tailwind users, and I can honestly just sit on the board forever if you give it something like a Citrus Berry and Roost. And that's how you're going to play around Thunderclaps, honestly, is just roosting and tailwinding and hoping they're going to spam Thunderclaps. And moving on to my number 1. Best Pokemon that absolutely nobody uses, I'm talking about Heatran. Heatran is insane. I'm not going to lie. Resisting Fluttermane, being able to take down Incineroar, that's the top Pokemon. Being able to take down Raging Bolt, that's another top Pokemon. I think it deals insanely well into most of the meta of this game. I don't understand why most people don't use it. I think if you give it a leftovers, it can sit on the field forever. Especially for me as a Sand Team abuser, even though Sand Teams are trash, I'm not going to lie. It sits down, just stays there, especially with the Terra. Terra Grass is probably the best Terra for it. It's able to just deal with so many Pokemon in this regulation, and it's really only afraid of flying Pokemon, to be honest. It's able to deal with both Urshifus. It is going to cost you a Terra. That is the main issue I can honestly see with this Pokemon, is it will end up being a Terra Hog. But Flash Fire is such a nice ability. You can turn into, like I said, Terra Grass, and one of those weaknesses is just gone. You're really only going to be weak to Poison, Bug, and Flying, which is insane. 3 weaknesses when you're Terra'd, but when you're non-Terra'd, you have so many resists, and it's resistant to many of the game's top Pokemon. Honestly, I don't know why most of these Pokemon aren't used. It might be because I'm a scrub and I don't know what's going on. You guys let me know. Let me know who you think is the most underrated Pokemon. And since you made it this far, why not check out one of my other videos? It's going to pop up somewhere on the screen. Thank y'all for coming. Peace.